The sky above Zephora shimmered in hues of violet and gold, as if the very atmosphere had been painted by an artist who loved bright colors. Floating cities hovered gently above the land, connected by delicate bridges that glowed faintly with energy. Everywhere one looked, light reflected off the crystalline structures, bouncing onto the shimmering leaves of giant trees below. The planet had a rhythm, a gentle heartbeat that its inhabitants had learned to follow for centuries. Princess Liara stood on the balcony of the royal palace, her eyes scanning the horizon. Her posture was perfect, her expression calm, as was expected of someone of her rank. She had been trained to remain composed at all times, to show no fear, no curiosity too obvious, no emotion that might betray her thoughts. Yet today was different. She could feel a strange tension in the air, a ripple that made her heart beat a little faster than usual. "Your Highness," a voice called softly behind her. It was her attendant, a small, elegant creature named Velen, whose skin shimmered like liquid silver. "Everything is ready for the council meeting. The envoys from the neighboring systems are arriving soon." Liara nodded gracefully. "Thank you, Velen. Everything must proceed perfectly. No mistakes, no surprises." Her voice was calm, measured. She turned her gaze back to the horizon, where the sun was beginning to sink behind a ring of distant mountains. But then something unusual caught her eye. A small speck appeared in the sky, moving erratically. It was not a city craft, not the elegant ships of Zephora's fleet. It spun, dipped, and plummeted in a way no controlled ship should ever do. Her trained eyes narrowed. Velen noticed her sudden tension. "Princess, what is it?" I do not know," Liara admitted quietly. "It is not one of ours." The object fell, closer, leaving a trail of smoke and sparks. It landed in a clearing far below the city, causing a small explosion of dust and debris. Liara's composure remained, but her mind raced. A crash landing so close to the city could be dangerous, and yet, there was a strange pull in her chest, a curiosity she could not ignore. Without another word, she moved toward the palace exit. Velen followed closely, silently. They descended through the palace corridors, down stairways that seemed to glow, from within, until they reached a courtyard where a small hovering craft awaited. It was used for emergencies, for rapid travel across the floating city. Liara stepped inside, her fingers brushing the controls with practiced ease. The craft hummed softly, and within moments, they were lifting off, gliding toward the distant clearing. As they approached, she could see a figure stumbling out of the wreckage. It was a human. His uniform was torn, his hair messy, and he was clearly disoriented. Yet there was something striking about him. He moved with a certain purpose, helping small creatures that had been caught in the blast of his crash. He lifted a tiny glowing animal gently, setting it aside with careful hands, as if nothing else in the world mattered. Liara's lips pressed together. Protocol dictated that she keep her distance, observe, and then report. But curiosity pulled at her, stronger than caution. She watched silently as the human straightened, dusted himself off, and looked around, confused but alert. Valen's voice was a whisper. "Your Highness, should we approach?" Liara shook her head, her eyes never leaving the human. "Not yet. Let him show his nature first." The human looked up at the floating cities, his eyes wide with amazement. He murmured something in a language Liara did not recognize, but the tone was gentle, respectful. Despite the rough landing, he smiled faintly. There was no fear, no aggression, only curiosity and wonder. Liara felt a strange sensation, a flutter, in her chest. She had met many beings from across the galaxy, yet none had struck her like this human. There was something raw and honest in him, something unrefined but noble. Before she could dwell further, a small alarm sounded in her craft. Velen's silver eyes widened. "Sensors detect unstable energy from the crash site. It may be dangerous." Liara's expression remained calm, but her mind was alert. "We will land carefully. Prepare the shields." The craft descended through the air, floating gracefully above the clearing. The human was now trying to repair a damaged panel on his ship, moving with a focus that reminded Liara of a scholar at work or a healer attending to the sick. He seemed unaware of the floating palace above him. Liara decided it was time to make contact. She stepped out of the craft, her long robes flowing like liquid starlight. Velen followed quietly, holding a small translator device. The human finally looked up. His eyes widened as he saw her descending from the sky, regal and calm, a picture of authority. For a moment, neither spoke. The wind carried the faint scent of flowers and ozone from the nearby energy crystals. Liara spoke first, her voice steady and melodic. "Greetings. I am Princess Liara of Zyphora. You are far from your world." The human blinked, then bowed slightly, unsure of what to do. I am Kyle. I come from Earth. My ship, I crashed." He paused, clearly nervous but sincere. "I did not mean to disturb your planet." Liara inclined her head. "Your presence is unexpected but not unwelcome. Your actions have already shown care for our creatures. That is a good sign." Kale's brow furrowed. I try to help wherever I go. I didn't know this planet. I didn't want to cause trouble." Liara allowed herself a small smile. "You have caused no trouble yet, but you are far from home, and this world has rules that may be difficult to understand." Kyle nodded. "I'll try my best." There was a brief pause, filled only by the soft hum of the floating crystals and the distant glow of the city above. Liara observed him carefully. He was human, adaptable, curious, and surprisingly brave. Despite his rough appearance, she sensed a strength that went beyond physical prowess. He had a mind that could face challenges and a heart that could care deeply. Velen whispered from behind her. "Princess, should we take him to the palace?" Liara considered this. It was dangerous to bring an unknown being so close to the heart of the city. Yet she felt an inexplicable pull to know him better, to see what lay behind the human's eyes, which were full of both wonder and determination. "Yes," she said softly. "Bring him to the palace, carefully." Kale's eyes widened. I don't want to intrude." "You will not intrude," Liara assured him. "Come, and you will understand more of Zyphora." As they began the careful journey toward the floating city, Kyle stumbled slightly, but Liara caught his arm gently. "Steady yourself," she said, maintaining her composed tone, but her eyes betrayed a hint of amusement. Kyle chuckled awkwardly. "Thanks. I'm not used to floating cities." Liara allowed herself a faint smile. "You will adapt. Humans are capable of more than you often give yourselves credit for." The journey continued in silence for a while, but the silence was not uncomfortable. Kyle occasionally looked around, amazed by the glowing bridges, the floating gardens, and the creatures that moved gracefully among them. Liara observed him, noting every expression, every subtle gesture. There was something refreshingly simple about him, and yet profoundly capable. As they reached the palace gates, Liara's mind was already turning over possibilities. This human was unexpected, yes, but perhaps this unexpected meeting could bring new understanding between their worlds. She had faced countless diplomats, strategists, and scholars. None had impressed her as Kyle had. None had made her feel curiosity, admiration, and cautious hope all at once. Kyle, for his part, was overwhelmed but determined to learn. He had traveled across the stars, faced dangers, and yet he had never encountered a world like Zyphora, and never a person like Liara. Her presence was commanding yet gentle. Her eyes held intelligence and calm, but also a warmth that humans rarely recognized in aliens of her rank. As they entered the palace, Liara felt a strange, thrilling anticipation. This encounter, unexpected and unplanned, might change the way she saw her world, and perhaps the way her world saw humans. And deep inside, Kyle felt it too. A sense that this meeting was the beginning of something larger, something beyond. A simple crash landing. The stars above Zephora blinked softly as if approving the encounter. Somewhere between curiosity and caution, respect and admiration, a bond was beginning to form, one that neither Liara nor Kyle could have predicted. The palace of Zephora was unlike anything Kale had ever seen. Its walls were made of crystal that glimmered in colors he could barely name. The ceilings floated above in layers, each one glowing faintly, casting soft lights over gardens that defied gravity. Trees stretched sideways and upside down, their roots delicately suspended in the air, while flowers glowed like tiny lanterns. For Kyle, every step was a discovery and every corner seemed to hum with quiet power. Princess Liara led the way with her usual grace. Her robes flowed around her, catching the light in ways that made her appear almost ethereal. Kyle tried to maintain his composure, but he stumbled slightly over the floating tiles. He caught himself, cheeks flushing. Liara noticed. "Careful," she said softly, her voice calm and smooth. "The paths are stable, but they respond to weight differently than on your world." Kale laughed nervously. "I'll try. This is incredible. I've never seen anything like this." "You are far from home," Liara said, not unkindly. "And this world has rules that are different from yours. It will take time to understand them." Kyle nodded. "I'm willing to learn." Valen followed closely, carrying a small device that hummed quietly. "Your Highness," Valen said, "I have prepared a room for him. It is safe, and he will have everything he needs while he recovers from the crash." Liara glanced at Kale. "He will need rest, yes, but I would like to speak with him first. It is important to know what kind of person has come to Zephora uninvited." Kale swallowed. "I promise I am not dangerous. I only wish to survive, and to learn about your world." Liara's lips curved slightly, the tiniest hint of a smile. "Then you shall have that chance." The audience chamber was spacious, with soft light filtering through crystalline windows. The walls shimmered, displaying faint patterns of Zephora's history. Kale's eyes widened. He had entered great halls on Earth, palaces and government buildings, but none compared to this. It was alive in a way he couldn't describe. Liara gestured for him to sit on a floating cushion. Kyle hesitated, unsure how to balance himself, but soon managed. "Do you always float to your seats?" he asked. Liara's smile deepened, though she did not show it fully. "Only in the palace, it is tradition." Kyle nodded. "It's graceful. I like it." For a moment, silence filled the room. Kyle studied Liara, trying to understand her. She was composed, yes, but there was intelligence in her eyes that made him feel like she could see right through him. He remembered his training, his experiences across the stars, and felt both humbled and curious. Liara finally spoke. "Kyle, tell me about yourself. Where do you come from, and why have you traveled so far?" Kyle took a deep breath. "I come from Earth. We are humans. Not very advanced in space travel yet, but we are learning. I was exploring mapping systems when something went wrong with my ship. I crashed here." Liara nodded, listening carefully. "And your intentions? Why travel so far if your world is not yet prepared for interstellar journeys?" Kyle thought for a moment. "Curiosity, I suppose. Humans. We always want to know what's out there. We want to understand, to see, to learn. Sometimes it gets us into trouble." He paused. "Clearly I've done that here." Liara's gaze softened. "Curiosity is a valuable trait. It can lead to wisdom or danger, depending on how it is guided." Kale chuckled lightly. "I guess I've been guided into the middle of a floating palace. That counts as danger, I suppose." Liara's faint smile grew. "Perhaps. But it also counts as opportunity." Later, they walked through the palace gardens. Flowers floated beside them, and small creatures with translucent wings glided lazily in the air. Kyle tried to keep up, but he often stumbled on invisible steps or misjudged distances. Liara, ever composed, offered quiet guidance. "Step lightly here," she said, gesturing to a glowing path. "Your weight will affect the path's balance." Kale adjusted, feeling foolish but grateful. "Thanks, I've never experienced anything like this." "Most visitors have not," Liara said. "Humans are not known for navigating floating gardens." She glanced at him, her eyes soft but focused. "Yet you adapt quickly." Kale shrugged. "I have to. Space is unpredictable. You learn to handle what comes at you." They reached a small pond suspended in midair, water shimmering and reflecting the light like liquid glass. Kale knelt to touch it, mesmerized. Liara watched him quietly, noting the mix of awe and respect in his eyes. She had seen diplomats and scholars react with interest to Zyphora's wonders, but none had reacted like this human. He was fascinated without pretense. "You seem to care about your surroundings," Liara said softly. Kale looked up. "I do. I want to understand, to help if I can, even in small ways." Liara considered this. That is a rare quality. Many come seeking power, knowledge, or advantage. Few think first of helping. Kyle smiled. "I guess humans are strange that way. We're stubborn, sometimes reckless, but we try." The wind shifted, carrying a sweet fragrance of floating blossoms. Kyle inhaled deeply, feeling at peace despite the strange surroundings. Liara noticed the change in him. He was beginning to relax, to trust this world, and perhaps her. Not all was peaceful, however. A group of Zyphoran council members had been observing Kale from afar. They were curious but cautious, their minds quick to analyze potential threats. One counselor, a tall being with crystalline skin, whispered to another. "Your Highness," he said when Liara returned, "this human, he may be honest, but can we truly trust him? He has entered our world uninvited." Liara remained composed. "His actions so far have shown respect for our creatures, our laws, and our people. I will continue to observe him. Trust is not given lightly, but neither is suspicion required without reason." The counselor nodded reluctantly. Liara's calm, reasoned approach often quieted doubters, yet Kale's presence was undeniably unusual. As evening fell, Liara invited Kyle to the palace dining hall. The hall floated above the city, the walls transparent to give a view of the glowing metropolis below. Creatures floated gently through the air, delivering food in small, elegant dishes. Kale marveled at the technology and elegance but kept his manners, remembering the importance of respect. Liara observed him as he ate. His curiosity remained, but he also respected boundaries, asking questions politely and listening carefully to answers. She noted every small gesture, the tilt of his head, the way his eyes lit up with understanding. He was different from anyone she had ever met. "Your world," Kyle said, "must be very disciplined. I've never seen anything so organized and beautiful." "It has order, yes," Liara replied, "but beauty is not always in structure. Sometimes it is in how one adapts, how one reacts to the unexpected." She looked at him thoughtfully. "And humans, you adapt well." Kyle felt a warmth at her words. Few beings in the galaxy had complimented humans without condescension. "I try," he said simply. Liara smiled faintly. "And that is why you are here, rather than simply removed. Your presence may teach us as much as you learn from us." Kyle blinked. "Me? Teach? I'm just a human who crashed here." "Sometimes," Liara said, "it is the unexpected who shows the way forward. Appearances and titles are not always what matters most." Kale nodded, absorbing her words. He felt a growing respect for her, not just for her beauty or rank, but for her wisdom and fairness. For the first time in this strange world, he felt a sense of purpose. After dinner, Liara walked him back to the room prepared for him. It was comfortable, designed to help him recover from the crash. Kyle paused at the door, unsure if he should leave her side or express gratitude. "You have been very kind," he said quietly. "I do not know if I deserve it." Liara regarded him calmly. "Kindness is not about deserving, Kale. It is about choice. And so far you have shown choices that are honorable." Kale felt a swell of pride and humility at the same time. He nodded. "Thank you, Princess Liara. I will not forget this." She inclined her head. "Rest now. Tomorrow we will begin to learn more about each other. There is much to understand, and I wish to see what your human mind can offer." Kale stepped into the room, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. The day had been overwhelming, but he sensed the start of something significant. Something beyond a crash, beyond first impressions. Liara returned to her chambers, her mind quiet but alert. She could not ignore the curiosity and admiration she felt toward this human. She had faced countless beings from across the stars, but Kale had a spark that intrigued her. It was rare, unpredictable, and entirely human. Outside, the city of Zephora glowed softly in the night. The stars above twinkled like distant promises. For both Kale and Liara, the meeting was just the beginning. A bridge between two worlds had begun to form, fragile but full of potential. The morning sun rose over Zephora like molten gold spilling across the sky. Floating gardens glimmered, creatures flitted between the glowing trees, and the city hummed with life. For Princess Liara, it was just another day of careful observation, diplomacy, and maintaining perfect composure. Yet today there was an unusual tension in the air, a ripple she could feel in her bones. Kyle, the human warrior who had captured her curiosity, was ready for the day. He had spent the night resting, but he was already wandering the palace corridors, eyes wide with fascination. He had learned quickly how to move among the floating paths, though occasionally he still stumbled, giving Liara quiet amusement. The calm of the morning was interrupted by a sudden disturbance. Crystals embedded in the city walls flickered erratically, and soft alarms sounded through the palace. "Princess, the energy readings from the outer gardens are unstable," Valen said, appearing at Liara's side. His silver skin glimmered under the morning light. "We have never seen fluctuations like this." Liara's expression remained composed. "Gather the council. I will investigate. Kyle, you will come with me." Kyle's eyes widened. "Me? Why?" "You have proven yourself adaptable," Liara replied. "Your perspective may help us understand what is happening." He nodded, swallowing a sudden surge of nervous excitement. He had faced danger before, yes, but never alongside a princess of a floating city on a planet he barely understood. They exited the palace and glided toward the outer gardens. The air smelled of ozone and blossoms, and floating pools of water shimmered like mirrors in the morning light. As they approached, Kale noticed small creatures fleeing the area, frightened by erratic energy pulses. Liara's eyes narrowed. "The disturbance seems to originate from that cluster of crystals," she said, pointing to a grove glowing brighter than usual. "They regulate the city's energy flow. If the fluctuations continue, communication and transport will be affected." Kyle crouched beside one of the crystals, examining it closely. "It looks like interference. Something is affecting the energy field. Maybe a natural pulse, maybe something else." Liara nodded. "We must find the source. If it is not addressed quickly, the city itself could be in danger." Together, they ventured closer to the crystal grove. Kyle led the way through tangled floating vines, stepping carefully on invisible paths. Liara followed, her composure intact, though she felt her pulse quicken slightly at the thought of what they might encounter. As they moved deeper into the grove, the energy pulses grew stronger. The crystals hummed in an eerie rhythm, and the air seemed to thrum with unseen power. Kyle paused, adjusting his stance. "We need to be careful. These pulses are unpredictable." Liara placed a hand lightly on his shoulder. "I trust your judgment. You have a practical mind that I admire." Kale felt a warmth at her words but remained focused. "Thanks. Let's figure this out." Suddenly, A large branch of a floating tree collapsed under the energy surge, blocking their path. Kale grabbed a nearby vine and swung himself over. Liara followed with grace, moving effortlessly. The contrast between Kale's raw strength and Liara's precise control was striking. As they pressed on, they discovered the source of the disturbance, a hidden crystal, pulsing wildly, brighter than the others. Its surface flickered with strange patterns, and the energy it emitted caused the surrounding flora to shake and shimmer. Kel studied it. This is unusual. It's like it's alive, or reacting to something external. Liara crouched beside him. It may have been tampered with, or influenced by forces we do not yet understand. Can you stabilize it? Kale hesitated. I can try, but I need your guidance. I do not know your crystal systems. Liara extended her hand, touching the crystal lightly. The crystals respond to balance, to gentle influence. Force will worsen the pulses. Kale nodded, watching her carefully. He mimicked her movements, placing his hands near the crystal, feeling its vibrations. Slowly, under their combined focus, the wild pulses began to calm. The grove's plants relaxed, and the air lost its harsh hum. Well done, Liara said quietly. You adapt quickly. Humans often surprise me. Kyle grinned. I try my best. You make it easier by showing me the way. For a brief moment, they shared a quiet connection, their teamwork seamless despite the differences in their worlds. Kyle felt admiration for Liara not just as a princess but as a leader with intelligence and grace. Liara, in turn, felt respect for Kale's courage, curiosity, and ability to think on his feet. Their calm was broken by a sudden tremor in the ground. Another cluster of crystals had begun pulsing erratically. Kale jumped to his feet. We need to act fast. These crystals are connected. If one falls out of sync, the whole network could be unstable. Liara's eyes narrowed in determination. We split up. You stabilize the secondary cluster. I will support the primary. Communicate with me. Trust in your instincts. Kale swallowed. Understood. As they worked, Kale found himself improvising in ways he had never expected. He used vines to brace unstable crystals, redirected energy flows with quick adjustments, and even carried small glowing plants to balance the pulses. Liara, graceful and precise, countered subtle energy fluctuations with soft touches. Her eyes, focused and unblinking. At one point, Kale stumbled, almost losing his balance. Liara reached out instantly, steadying him. Be careful, she said softly, though her voice carried no scolding, only concern. Kyle nodded, heart pounding. I'm fine. Thanks to you. Together, they completed the stabilization, bringing harmony back to the grove. The crystals glowed steadily, the plants relaxed, and the air was calm once more. Liara took a step back, observing Kyle. You have done well. Not many could handle this challenge. Kale wiped sweat from his brow, smiling. I couldn't have done it without you. Your guidance, it made all the difference. Liara allowed herself a small smile. And your perspective has reminded me that even in the most controlled systems, fresh eyes can find solutions I might overlook. Kale chuckled. I guess humans are good at improvising. Sometimes we see what others miss. By the time they returned to the palace, news of their teamwork had spread. Citizens gathered in the floating gardens to watch the unusual pair, whispering about the human who had helped stabilize the city's vital energy system. Liara noticed the admiration in their eyes, though she maintained her composed demeanor. In a private moment, she turned to Kyle. You have shown courage and wisdom today in ways that surpass mere strength. You are remarkable. Kyle felt a flush of pride. Thank you. That means a lot coming from you, Princess. I didn't expect to do anything special here. Liara's gaze softened. Often, the most unexpected beings accomplish the greatest things. Humans, for example, possess an adaptability and determination that many underestimate. Kale smiled shyly. I guess that's true. We try to keep going, no matter what. That quality is valuable, Liara said, her voice steady but warm, and it complements what we know of Zephora. Perhaps this is the beginning of a bridge between our worlds. Kyle looked at her, surprised. A bridge? Liara nodded. Yes, a connection built on respect, understanding, and shared effort. Today, you have proven that even the most different beings can work together. Kale felt a mix of awe and humility. He had faced many challenges in space, but nothing like this. Here, he was not just surviving, he was learning, contributing, and forming a bond with someone extraordinary. Later, in a quiet chamber, Liara reflected on the day's events. She had faced many crises, guided many diplomats, and handled countless emergencies. Yet, today had been different. Kyle had shown her a perspective she had not considered, a fresh approach to challenges. She realized that his presence was not merely a curiosity. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but they were also capable of ingenuity, courage, and compassion, in ways that could surprise even the most advanced civilizations. Kale, in his own quarters, stared out at the floating city below. He felt a new sense of purpose. He had come to Zephora by accident, yes, but now he understood that he had a role to play, not as a visitor, but as a contributor, and perhaps as a friend. Someone who could learn from and teach the alien princess who had intrigued him from the first moment he saw her. The stars above Zephora twinkled in approval, as if signaling that this partnership, unexpected, fragile, and full of potential, was only just beginning. The day after the energy disturbance, the city of Zephora seemed more vibrant than ever. Floating gardens swayed gently, crystal bridges shimmered under the twin suns, and citizens moved with quiet grace between the layers of the palace. Princessy, Liara walked through the halls with her usual composure, yet she carried a subtle curiosity in her gaze. Kyle, the human warrior, had proven himself capable in a way that she had not anticipated, and she could not ignore the unusual connection forming between them. Kyle, meanwhile, was exploring the city under Valen's supervision. He moved with careful steps, trying not to damage any of the delicate structures or disturb the floating flora. Everywhere he looked, Zephora's citizens observed him with a mix of curiosity and caution. Kale was aware that he was an outsider in this world, but he carried himself with respect, mindful of the princess's words. Trust must be earned. Liara decided to invite Kale for a walk through the palace's main gardens. These gardens were larger and more elaborate than any other in the city, with floating ponds, cascading streams, and glowing plants that responded to touch. The human followed her obediently, still adjusting to the floating paths. You seem fascinated by everything, Liara said lightly, noticing Kale pause at a small pond, staring at his reflection. Kale chuckled nervously. I am. It's different. Your world is so alive, in ways I've never experienced. It's not just beautiful, it feels connected. Liara inclined her head. Our people have lived here for generations. We understand balance and harmony in ways that may seem subtle to outsiders. You are perceptive for a human. Kale smiled faintly. I try. It helps to pay attention. They continued walking, and Liara noticed Kale's curiosity was accompanied by careful observation. Unlike some visitors who only admired the beauty, Kale seemed to try to understand it, to learn from it. She felt a growing admiration for him, not just as a visitor, but as someone capable of seeing beyond appearances. As they wandered, Kyle asked questions about the city, its floating gardens, and the crystalline structures that powered the palace. Liara answered each carefully, aware that some knowledge was sensitive, yet appreciating his genuine interest. You have a way of seeing things differently, she said finally. Most visitors focus only on the spectacle, not the systems that support it. Kale shrugged. I guess humans notice patterns. We look for connections, even if we don't fully understand them at first. Liara's gaze softened. Your perspective is valuable. Sometimes it takes an outsider to see what insiders overlook. For The first time Kale felt a sense of belonging in this alien world. He had come as a crash-landed visitor, uncertain and awkward, yet now he felt useful, capable, and respected. Their walk was interrupted by the arrival of other council members. The envoys from neighboring systems had come to observe the results of the energy stabilization. They were curious but also wary of the humans' presence. One counselor, tall and angular with shimmering blue skin, spoke with a slight edge. "Your Highness, this human, his involvement in our city's systems is unusual. Can we trust him?" Liara remained calm, her voice steady. "Kale has demonstrated courage, intelligence, and respect for our systems. His perspective has helped stabilize the city where we might have failed. Trust is not given lightly, but it is not withheld without reason." The counselor inclined his head, still cautious but respectful. Liara's composure and fairness often quieted critics, and Kale noted how her presence commanded both authority and admiration. Kale, feeling slightly nervous, bowed respectfully. "I only wish to help, not disrupt." Liara's eyes softened. "And you have helped. That is what matters." After the council meeting, Liara and Kale found a quiet terrace overlooking the floating city. The twin suns reflected off the crystal towers, casting dazzling patterns across the sky. Kale leaned on the railing, marveling at the view. "You seem calm," Kyle said. "Even when facing these huge responsibilities." Liara smiled faintly. "Composure is a necessity for a leader. It allows one to act with clarity and wisdom. Yet, it is not always easy to maintain." Kyle looked at her surprised. "Really? You seem perfect." She laughed softly, a sound like bells over water. "Perfection is an illusion, Kyle. I am trained to appear composed, but I feel doubt, curiosity, and even fear, like anyone else. The difference is that I learned to control it." Kale nodded, impressed. "I never thought of it that way. On Earth, we mostly deal with chaos, so maybe we just survive instead of control." Liara tilted her head thoughtfully. "Survival has value. So does understanding. Perhaps that is why humans and Xiferans can learn from each other." Over the next days, Liara and Kale worked together on small projects in the city. Kale helped adjust the minor energy flows in the floating gardens, and Liara observed how his human ingenuity often solved problems in unexpected ways. They laughed over mistakes and shared ideas, forming a bond built on mutual respect. At one point, Kale accidentally caused a small fountain to spray uncontrollably. Water floated in strange arcs, drenching both of them. Liara maintained her composure outwardly, though her eyes twinkled with amusement. "You humans are unpredictable," she said, dabbing at her robes. Kale laughed, shaking off the water. "And you aliens are too precise sometimes. Maybe a little chaos helps." Liara allowed herself a genuine smile. "Perhaps you are right." This moment, simple and playful, marked a turning point. Liara realized that Kale's presence was not just useful, it was refreshing. He brought laughter, curiosity, and perspective into a world that often felt rigid and controlled. As their friendship deepened, cultural differences became apparent. Kyle sometimes misunderstood subtle customs, while Liara struggled to explain traditions that seemed second nature to her people. Yet each misunderstanding became an opportunity to learn and grow closer. One evening, Kale accidentally addressed a minor citizen with a formal gesture reserved only for royalty. The citizen stiffened, but Liara intervened calmly. "It is a small mistake," she whispered to Kale later. "Learning our customs will take time. Do not be discouraged." Kale nodded, embarrassed but grateful. "Thanks. I'll try. I want to respect your world." "And you already have," Liara said softly. "Your intention matters more than the small errors." This understanding strengthened their trust. Kyle began to see Liara not just as a princess, but as a person who valued integrity, fairness, and learning. Liara began to see Kale not just as a visitor, but as a human capable of courage, wisdom, and insight. One quiet night, they walked along a balcony that overlooked the floating city. The stars above Zephora twinkled like distant lanterns and the city below glowed softly. Kale paused, looking out at the horizon. "I never expected to find a world like this," he said quietly. "And I never expected to meet someone like you." Liara regarded him thoughtfully. "And yet, here we are. Two beings from different worlds finding understanding in each other." Kale smiled faintly. I'm glad. I feel like I belong here. In a way I didn't expect." Liara's gaze softened. "Belonging is not always about where you come from. Sometimes it is about who you trust and respect." Kale nodded. "Then I belong here. With you." Liara's heart felt a quiet warmth, though she maintained her composed expression. She knew the connection they shared was unusual, unexpected, and perhaps fragile, but it was genuine. As days passed, their friendship became known throughout the palace. Citizens admired Kyle's humility and courage, while Liara's open-mindedness and patience were respected. The bond between human and princess was no longer a secret. It became a symbol of possibility, a bridge between worlds. Yet, neither Kale nor Liara fully understood how much their partnership would grow in importance. Their bond was more than friendship. It was a meeting of minds, hearts, and perspectives. In this fragile connection lay the potential to inspire understanding, cooperation, and hope across the galaxy. The morning sky over Zephora was soft and pale, painted in shades of lavender and gold. Floating gardens swayed gently in the warm breeze, and crystal bridges sparkled under the twin suns. Princess Liara stood on a balcony, gazing down at the city below. Her expression was calm, as always, but her mind was filled with thoughts she rarely allowed herself to entertain. Kale, the human warrior, had received word that he would soon return to his own world. His ship had been repaired and preparations were being made for his departure. The news weighed heavily on Liara. Though she had maintained her composed exterior, the idea of losing Kale, this human who had brought curiosity, courage, and laughter into her life, felt like a quiet ache in her chest. Velen appeared beside her, his silver form reflecting the morning light. "Your Highness, he is ready. His ship awaits." Liara nodded, her gaze still distant. "I know. Yet, I find it difficult to let him go." Velen tilted his head. "You have grown attached." Liara allowed herself a quiet sigh. "Perhaps more than I should." Kyle approached the balcony carrying a small bag with his personal belongings. His uniform was repaired, but the edges were still slightly worn from his journey. When he saw Liara, he stopped, his expression both respectful and tender. "Princess Liara," he said softly, I have enjoyed my time here more than I can express." Liara turned to face him fully, her composure intact, though her eyes betrayed a flicker of emotion. "And I, Kale, have been grateful for your presence. You have shown courage, intelligence, and understanding, qualities that are rare in any world." Kyle smiled faintly. "I only did what I could. You taught me more than I expected. You showed me how to see beyond the surface of a world, and beyond appearances and people." Liara's gaze softened. "And you have reminded me that even the most controlled systems can benefit from fresh eyes and bold ideas. You humans, you are unpredictable, yes, but capable of much more than many realize." Kyle stepped closer, though still mindful of distance. "I never imagined I would meet someone like you, Princess. Someone who sees clearly, yet understands deeply." Liara inclined, her head slightly, "And yet here we are. Two beings from distant worlds learning from each other. Their time together had changed both of them. Liara had learned to appreciate human adaptability, humor, and determination. Kale had learned that wisdom, composure, and careful observation could reveal truths hidden beneath beauty and structure. They walked together to the landing platform, where Kale's repaired ship hovered, ready for departure. Citizens of the city had gathered at a respectful distance, curious to see the farewell between the human warrior and the princess who had welcomed him. Kale looked at Liara one last time. I don't know what the future holds, princess, but I will never forget you, or Zyphora. Liara regarded him, her calm demeanor unwavering. Nor will I forget you, Kale. You have left an impression that will endure. Humans may be distant from our world, yet your courage and wisdom will remain, in my memory. He hesitated for a moment, then extended his hand. May we meet again someday? Liara took his hand, her grip firm but gentle. If the stars align, Kale, we shall meet again. As Kale prepared to board his ship, a sudden disturbance occurred, in the city. Small energy pulses flickered through the floating bridges, causing a few citizens to pause in concern. Kyle froze for a moment, then looked at Liara. Are you all right? He asked. Liara's calm voice reassured him. Yes. The energy is stable. These small pulses are natural. You need not worry. Kale nodded, though he felt a pang of concern. I wish I could help more, even as I leave. Liara placed a hand lightly on his shoulder. You have already done more than most. Your presence has strengthened the city and reminded me that unexpected allies can appear anywhere. Before departure, Kale turned to Valen. Thank you for guiding me and for teaching me how to respect this world. Valen inclined his head, silver eyes soft. You have proven yourself worthy of trust, human. Your actions will not be forgotten. Kyle then looked back at Liara one last time. Farewell, princess. Until we meet again. Liara nodded, a faint smile on her lips. Farewell, Kale. Safe travels. The ship began to rise, glowing softly as it prepared to jump through the outer space gates. Kale waved once, and Liara lifted her hand in response, maintaining her composed posture even as her heart felt the pull of farewell. Once the ship disappeared into the stars, Liara remained on the platform, gazing at the sky. She allowed herself a quiet breath, acknowledging the bond that had formed between them. Kale's presence had been unexpected yet invaluable. His courage, humility, and wisdom had left a lasting impression on her. Velen approached silently. Your Highness, you seem reflective. Liara's eyes softened. Kale reminded me that even in worlds governed by rules, order, and tradition, there is value in spontaneity, in seeing things differently. I will carry this lesson forward. Velen nodded. And perhaps one day he will return. Liara allowed a faint, hopeful smile. Perhaps. Days passed, but Kale's influence lingered. The palace gardens seemed brighter, the floating paths more vibrant, and the citizens moved with renewed curiosity and respect. Liara incorporated ideas Kale had shared, simple yet effective adjustments that made life smoother for the city's inhabitants. She realized that humans, though seemingly fragile compared to Zifferans, possessed a unique resilience. Kale's adaptability, courage, and humility had proven that even beings from distant worlds could make meaningful contributions. In quiet moments, Liara would find herself remembering his laughter, his curiosity, and the way he had approached each challenge with a mix of bravery and thoughtfulness. His presence had changed her perspective, not just on humans but on the possibilities that lay beyond Zyphora. Far away, on Earth, Kale gazed at the night sky from his ship. Zyphora was a distant glow in his mind, yet he felt the warmth of the princess's wisdom and the lessons he had learned. He realized that he had grown as a person, not just as a traveler or warrior. Humans were small, fragile, and often underestimated, but Kale now understood that courage, curiosity, and integrity could create bridges across the galaxy. His time on Zyphora had shown him that even the most distant worlds could be connected through understanding and respect. He whispered quietly to himself, Farewell, Princess Liara, until we meet again. Back on Zyphora, Liara returned to her balcony, gazing at the stars where Kale had vanished. She felt a quiet sense of hope. One human had reminded her of the value of courage, curiosity, and honesty. Perhaps one day humans could become allies, friends, and even partners to her world. She allowed herself a rare, genuine smile. The bridge between worlds had begun, not with armies, politics, or treaties, but with trust, respect, and understanding. Kale had shown her that humans were capable of greatness, and she would not forget the lessons he had brought. In that quiet moment, Liara realized that their meeting, brief though it had been, was more than a chance encounter. It was a beginning, a promise of friendship, discovery, and hope that stretched across the stars. The city below continued to shimmer and glow, alive with energy and possibility. And high above, the stars twinkled as if marking the first step of an extraordinary connection that would endure for years to come. Even worlds apart, human and princess carried the memory of their time together. An encounter that had proven that courage, respect, and understanding could bridge the vastest of distances.